It's not about getting someone to stay on your webpage to satisfy a query. It's about not having them go back to Google. Because ultimately, if they were on their search journey, did they end that search journey on your site? If it was 10 seconds, I don't care. But was it satisfied? Yeah? Cool. Then that's exactly why you would want to write the answer at the top and try to front load all the value. That's how it's working now.
Welcome to the Simple and Smart SEO Show podcast, where we talk all things brand building SEO, helping you connect with your audience, elevate your visibility, and grow your business. I'm your host, Waddell, here to bridge the gap between SEO strategy and real-world business success by bringing you insights, stories, and conversations from the SEO community and beyond. Whether you're an entrepreneur, marketer, or SEO enthusiast, this is your place to learn, share, and build a brand that stands out. So grab a coffee or your favorite tea, and let's dive into smarter SEO for your business. Before we hop off, I gotta know how SEO has changed pre-2022.
Sure. If you Google entity SEO, my article on Search Engine Land pops up. So that's like for people who are interested. I think it ranks number 1 right now, so you should be able to find it easily. But the concept is this. Before 2018, Google had not even a pretend understanding of content. What they had was keyword matching, and it was very rudimentary. What I could do back in the day was in white text, somewhere on the footer, I'm going to put the word how to train a pet or a puppy, if I want to rank for that, 40 times. I'm going to stuff the heck out of it. Whatever. Okay, it must be super relevant. And then Google was like, all right, we'll prioritize what's at the top of the page. All right, we'll just put it hidden somewhere on the top of the page. And then in 2018, there was a switch where it switched to semantics. There was a thing called RankBrain that came out. RankBrain was an algorithm specifically applied to the 15% of queries that Google had never seen before. And then there was something called BERT as well. And that actually is the reason why AI is where it's at now. Google created, I'm not even going to go into the algorithm, but they created something called BERT, and it was incredible. It absolutely changed the game. It allowed you to create your own search engines. It allowed like this new flourishing of like computers could understand. Takes a while for that to develop though. So in 2022, maybe a little bit earlier, it could have been as early as 2020, but I started to really notice that the actual quality of content, people will always point out that you can still spam and win, and there's all these black hat haters for this methodology. But now it's not just create good content, but it's create content that is specifically, just like humans learn in a specific way, machines learn in a specific way. So this new way is you have headers, and headers act as like flags that you're setting in the ground for the topic. Google has a very specific thing that it wants you to open up with a specific word. So if it says how to train a puppy, the first sentence should be, to train a puppy, you do this. Very definitive, fact, this to that. So short sentences to reduce complexity, easy grammar to reduce complexity. If you have a header, which is indicating something important, make sure you address it really quickly. And then if you have multiple data formats, that contextualizes it further. So an image, visual, that's basically just saying the same thing as that header did. Maybe a table, that's also another like data format. Schema markup, another data format. Bold, lists, numbered lists, all of these different things. You're trying to unpack things. You're giving examples. You're trying to apply it in different contexts. All of this now is solidifying the understanding and increasing the confidence for Google what your topic is. You just have to balance out readability and balance usefulness with the user, because ultimately a lot of the algorithm is, this is another way to change, by the way, is user metrics. And I'll end with the user metric piece because that's actually the most important one. But so that's the main like entity semantics. Okay, now it can understand content. All right. Last piece is Google now, because of mobile phones, really. So much of the internet now is mobile based. It's mobile first indexing. Everything is based off of the mobile phone. So Google's actually, and there's lots of code on the web. There's JavaScript, there's HTML, there's CSS, there's React, there's all sorts of things. And a lot of code is hard for Google to read because of processing power. I don't know if you know this, but Google's actually using our devices to process the internet for us. So when you go to a web page and it has JavaScript, it now is, what is that called? Crowdsourcing. It crowdsources it. I won't get the exact statistic right, but something like 2% of the world's JavaScript was indexed by Google maybe 6 years ago. We're at 100% or something. It's a 99% now because it has our phones. And anytime it can just use them. And that came out because of the lawsuit. They got sued multiple times. And even though things are redacted, ultimately what we've discovered is it has a lot of access to your phone. It has a lot of access to everything you're doing. I'll end it with this. It's not about getting someone to stay on your webpage to satisfy a query. It's about not having them go back to Google. Because ultimately, if they were on their search journey, did they end that search journey on your site? If it was 10 seconds, I don't care. But was it satisfied? Yeah? Cool. Then that's exactly why you would want to write the answer at the top and try to front load all the value. That's how it's working now. A ton of user metrics. That's why it's make content for users. And then a lot of understanding how to like structure content in a way that just the bots like. And because there's so much AI content out there now, a lot of this comes down to if you're saying the same thing, are you saying it in a way where they can understand it easier, therefore cheaper? Okay, because in little fractions of cheaper can be billions of dollars of saved money. So as long as you meet minimum thresholds of authority, users are liking it, and you're saying almost the same thing as somebody else, the users like it more, and we'll say it's cheaper, you win. And that's what it's down to now is just those elements.
Okay, so that was a great definition of helpful content too, by the way. Just a super quick follow-up. The man that you were speaking with that kind of invented topical authority, there was a point in the conversation where he mentioned something about if you're in the losers bracket for a site. I was wondering if you could explain that just a little bit more because I didn't fully understand like what made a winner and what made a loser in terms of how to get to the winners bracket.
I touched on part of topical authority, but ultimately it's about consistency and historical metrics. And I think this is when they misapply historical context. They think age domain. That's no. When the algorithm changed, it's no longer just, oh, this domain has been around since 1990. So of course they're going to rank. It's more about those core algorithm updates. So if people experience those, I love core algorithm updates. Those are moments where things change. And if you're doing the right things, which if we know how this isn't how just Google understands content. This is literally just how the science of bots work. That's why we know this works no matter what core algorithm happens is we know that Google has said they prioritize good content. And we know that it's trying to shift more to content, and not just on a page level. But the algo leak, I released something on Search Engine Land. I read through the 14,000 pieces of the algorithm leak, and I wrote a piece on that. And there's something called embeddings. And the idea is, think of it as like a bunch of little dots on a map, because this is how you visualize it using a tool called TensorFlow. And you'll have a bunch of little dots that represent a topic. And if the dots are darker colored, it literally just means that this is how Google sees your site. It means that they're clustered like this tightly instead of just like, these could be individual nodes, right? Of topics. This, my whole fist being like 50 topics and creating a very dense web of this, they've covered the topic versus a site that does this. Who's going to win? It's this site that's going to win. And that's what Google's looking for. So you become a winner you have to avoid cannibalization, which means writing things using different URLs to target something that Google just wants to be a single URL. But you create these topics and you need to bridge them together using internal links and basically saying this is how they segue together, this context to this context. And you just keep on creating that. So if you have 30 articles, Corey talks about 3 things. You can go deeper, faster, wider. Those are the 3 things you can do. So you can cover a wider range. You can go just with a single cluster, like maybe 20, 30 articles and go much deeper and process it much better. And then you can just like continually process faster. But you become a winner ultimately by over time, every 3-month segment, you are measuring positively where you don't have these negatives. And the longer you push back that negativity, whatever smackdown you experience, whatever Google didn't like about you, the more you can have that positive stuff. I would say generally, I haven't seen a site need longer than a year. So you have 3 to 4 algorithm updates, which is 9 months to 12 months. You can totally change a site around and the site's identity and all that stuff. But ultimately, this is a sucky thing, especially with the revolving door of agencies. So much of what's happening is actually, okay, once we hit that core algorithm update, and maybe let's say the agency left, right? And they were doing everything great. Then there was a core algorithm update, and maybe the agency was there for just long enough where now it takes off. And the company's, I don't even need an agency. Skip to 6 months. A lot of us have experienced this, a lot of business owners. Oh, why is it going down? You no longer have the historical metrics anymore. Like we've now measured another core algorithm update, 1 or 2, and that's no longer happening. And that's why you're dipping. even if you hired another agency, they might actually be decent, but still not doing as good. And you're going to experience an abnormal drop just because of that quality, that success that you were like labeled as. There's a reshifting that happens. So that's how you get like recategorized is you have to write good content in the way that I described. You have to maintain it over time. You have to target the right things, and you have to have good user metric scores. And you could do that by all sorts of things. You could do multimedia content in your content. You could build a tool, calculators in the mortgage industry. This is how they did it, but try to satisfy it. I tell people that basically the way to do this now is think about, could ChatGPT give this to them? What is different about my website? Can I give them something that ChatGPT alone can't? That's going to mean I need images. I need tools. There's more required now to win. Local SEO is almost entirely a joke to me. It's like a black hat heaven. You can just like game the algorithm pretty easily. But yeah, hopefully that answers it. I'm not as good as Corey, so I'm not going to be able to know the exact way to do this. But he treats Google like it's this instrument. He just can do whatever with it and knows how to play every note. It's amazing.
I love your breakdown. So I appreciate that very much. Now, for the listeners of this podcast and my audience, who would be a good fit for what you do? Or is there a specific place that you'd like to send people who are listening right now, especially entrepreneurs and small business owners?
Yeah. So I think the best spot is probably my school group. If you are interested in AI at all, there's a lot of things where you don't need to pay a monthly subscription for anymore. I think you just need to understand that as long as you have the proper frameworks and use what I showed with Claude, you could probably cut a couple AI tools out of the budget. You might still want one, but ultimately, I think people who want that kind of thing, yeah, go to my school group. That's why I have templates. I'm not trying to like reinvent the wheel. What I want is I've done the work. I have 25 different ways of doing copywriting. There's the PAS, there's the BAB, there's AIDA, there's the C, there's the 1+4, there's the story method. There's all these different methods. And as long as you have those templates, you just plug them into the AI and say, hey, use this template. I like that version. Maybe I'll try this version. So school, and it's AI Marketeers. Let me see if I have the right URL. It is school.com/masterclass marketing. So school with a K, SKOOL, Masterclass Marketing. And otherwise, you can follow me on YouTube. You can follow me on Facebook. That's probably the best places to follow me.
Okay, awesome. I will definitely put all of those links in the show notes. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can find links directly to those places and resources below. So Andrew, thank you very much for joining me today on the Simple and Smart SEO show. I know I feel smarter and just more encouraged with what's going on in the world of AI. And I really appreciate you coming to chat with us today.
Of course. Thanks for having me. This was fun.